Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It has been a wild week for Cleveland football. And to talk about this upcoming game, we have Jimmy Champ on the phone. Jimmy, how are you on this very, very nice Saturday morning?
I'm better than I was last night as my local Ravenna Ravens lost a nail-biter 6-3. So I can't wait to talk about our awesome Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, they've been the subject of a lot of media attention this week. And it all stems from what we all saw on Sunday when Deshaun Watson dropped back and looked like he was about to run a quarterback draw that had some running room, and he just crumbled to the ground. And when they showed the replay from behind, you could see his Achilles pop. He has a ruptured Achilles and will be out for a year. That's about how long this injury takes for people to recover. Aaron Rodgers' bullshit medicine degree notwithstanding. Everybody was wondering where the Browns were at with Watson before this injury, and now this gives some clarity because he's not going to be eligible to play until about halfway through next season. What do you think his relationship with the club will be during his rehab?
I mean, I imagine they'll still treat him like the player they wished he was that they signed. Like, I fully imagine they will support him 100% of the way, and halfway through next year when he's ready, unless they are on one hell of a heater, you'll see Deshaun Watson back under center next year.
That's my thought as well. He'll be out there for the second half of next season if he's healthy and ready to play.
Yeah. I mean, I think unless they're probably leading the AFC North.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and guess that that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, me as well. But I think that's I think that'd probably be the only caveat that would keep him from, as soon as he's ready to play, being the starting quarterback again.
Man, it's just they can't cut him.
No,
they can't cut him. They can't move on from him. They still have to make the best of him at least next year and probably the year after, because it's still a pretty onerous cap hit if you cut him after next season.
Yep.
So this whole thing's a mess. There's also a mess involved in I'm going to call it the alleged fan reaction.
Yeah, let's dig into this. I got some thoughts, brother.
Because everybody lost their minds about the fans cheering Deshaun Watson's injury. I have looked for clips online because I missed it in real time. I saw the injury, and as soon as he went down, I knew it was going to be a minute. And we have a 3-month-old infant at home, so when there isn't a game, when the plays aren't actually going, I tend to not pay attention to the game very much. So I didn't actually hear what was happening in real time. I've tried to find clips. I haven't found any clips. A couple of people online I reached out to in our Facebook groups. A couple of people at the game said there were a few people in their section, isolated individuals. A couple other people that were at the game were like, I didn't hear anything like that. And then Mike in the Browns group shared a video of one guy trying to get everybody around him to cheer while they were carting Deshaun off. And everybody was kind of looking at him like, dude, not cool. I think this reaction was horribly overblown. I actually don't think that many fans cheered his injury. What are your thoughts?
So I got a lot of hot takes here, bro. I got a lot of things to say about this. So confirmed from some people in the stadium, there were pockets of fans booing or pockets of fans cheering that Deshaun Watson went down.
Oh, we should also mention the entire stadium booed him when he was introduced.
But
that's different. That's very different.
The entire stadium booed him when he was introduced. There were pockets of fans cheering when he was injured. There were lots of sections where somebody, exactly as the video you saw, where somebody tried to cheer it and people were like, stop that, don't do that.
And good on all of those people that told those individuals to not do that.
Well, all right. So here's the thing, right? So, the players have been like, we're not something, we're just people too. Like, we're just people too, and nobody that gets hurt deserves that. I didn't deserve for the team that I've been rooting for my entire life because of a connection to my family to be forced to either not root for my team or root for a most likely sexual predator. I
The
don't care if
NFL
anybody booed him.
investigation found that he was a sexual predator. I think that's very important to note.
There you go. You forced him to be the quarterback of the team that I love, the team that I've sat in the dog pound in the cold. I've watched Warren Moon and John Elway tear the hearts out of that stadium. I've seen Bernie Kosar do incredible things. I was at the one win. The one win in the 1-31 I saw. I am a Browns fan. I love the Cleveland Browns. You said if you're going to be a fan of this team, you're going to be forced to root for a sexual predator. I don't give a shit about anybody that cheered him when he went down. I don't care. Cheer him. Because you told me they're normal people. You know what I don't do with normal people? Normal people that are sexual predators, I don't give a shit if they get hurt or get run over by a car or aren't successful in their life. I don't care. He's supposed to be you're just normal people who happen to play professional football, and there's a relationship between the fans and the players. I don't have to like it. I don't care that he got hurt. I'm glad he got hurt. Now, I wouldn't have stood up in the stadium and cheered that he got hurt, but I got no problem with the people who did, because the thing I hated the most about the media reaction was, hey, there were no Browns fans that cared that he was a sexual predator. They just cared that he was playing bad football. And that's bullshit, and that pisses me off.
Yeah,
because
well,
the reactions of those people that cheered him getting hurt had nothing to do. That had nothing to do with him being bad at football. That had to do with the whole thing, with the sexual predator, the ridiculous contract, the fact that he didn't want to come here and the ownership forced him to come here with that ridiculous contract, and the fact that he was bad at football. It was all encompassing. Like, I don't care. I'm fine. He's a normal person. We all work with shitty people, and we don't go, oh, I'd hate for something bad to happen to that shitty person I work with. Like Rasheed Wallace said it best so many years ago, ball don't lie. Like, I don't understand why there would be such a surprise. Like, we are in that list of Philly, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, New York. Like, we are fickle fans. We're hard fans. We care probably too much about our sports. I was surprised people were so surprised that there were fans cheering that Deshaun Watson got hurt. Because a lot of them might have said, man, now my daughter, my sister, my mom, my aunt, my grandma, they can be Cleveland Browns fans again because Deshaun Watson's not the quarterback.
Well, that's what Miner said. Sunday Browns games can maybe be fun again. And when he went down and was hurt, the first thing I kind of thought was I felt relief.
Yeah.
I don't have to hate watch my team now.
And I can tell you, I was watching the game with, at that very moment, the only people in the living room of the house I was watching the game on were my father-in-law and my daughter. And you could hear, you could hear a handful of people cheering.
Yeah.
You could hear it. It wasn't like it was made out to be, but you could hear
maybe
it.
Like 5-10%, not even
Yeah.
that.
And my father-in-law lost it a little bit. My father-in-law was like, man, you can't do that. You can't boo that injury. And my daughter looked at her grandfather and said, I'd be booing it. I can watch the Browns again.
I definitely have no sympathy for Watson. He's not a sympathetic figure in all of this. And the fact that the media and so many of the players are trying to paint him in a sympathetic light, I think is ridiculous, because they're acting like this just fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
And you touched on a lot of it with how the organization forced this despicable human being onto a fan base that has been rabid. And you combine that with the 25 years of complete futility. They have one playoff win in 25 years. They've won more than 7 games 3 times. This fan base has had to put up with so much shit that they have been put in a position where an unreasonable reaction is to be expected from at least a certain percentage of the people. And it's not to be condoned, but I understand. That's really how I feel about it. And to further a point you made, a lot of the people that are crying crocodile tears for Deshaun Watson on the national media stage, they seem to be a lot more upset about a small number of fans cheering his injury than they were about Deshaun Watson being a sexual predator, using his celebrity status and good guy image to systematically prey on women and put them in situations that he told them would not be sexual in nature and then made sexual in nature. And that is what angers me more than anything about how the media has reacted to this, is that people that said, well, the off the field stuff's the off the field stuff. That doesn't, we're going to focus on what's on the field. And it's like, well, fuck you.
Exactly.
It's so disingenuous, and it's just a way I talk about narratives all the time in media. Media loves narratives, and they love to stick with narratives. And when things don't fit the narrative, media is very bad at reporting and handling that story, and a lot of times they'll just ignore it. In this case, it gives the national media a chance to shit on Cleveland, which is what they love to do, because they love to shit on Cleveland because that's the narrative they want to use. And I'm just going to say real quick, Myles Garrett, Deshaun Watson hasn't mostly been a model citizen since his days in college. He's been a sexual predator that whole time. So you can go fuck yourself with that bullshit comment. And Jameis, I know you're starting this weekend, and that's good for you, but nobody's putting their lives on the line for this city, especially Deshaun Watson, who's getting paid $250 million. So why don't you tone down your bullshit rhetoric too?
We both listen to a lot of national media. I listen, I think maybe a little bit to the local media, a little bit more than you do, but we both listen to a lot of football media. And I would just I know it's an age-old joke that has been used in a lot of spots, but I just want to say kudos to my man Nick Wright, who, while not on First Things First, but on his individual podcast,
yeah, I saw that,
said the line, really, Myles? Really? Deshaun Watson is mostly been a model citizen in the NFL. That's like saying John Wilkes Booth was mostly a good theater goer in his life. Kudos to Nick Wright for that line.
Reddit had Myles a field Garrett, day with that comment.
Myles Garrett, how dare you? How dare you? This city, for some reason, and first off, I still think TJ Watt was the defensive player of the year last year, because when I'm forced to watch Steelers games, I never see TJ Watt disappear. And I've seen Myles Garrett disappear even during his defensive player of the year run. He has been spectacular at times on the football field. He will most likely be the next Cleveland Brown to be a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
So kudos to all of that. We also lost a game last year because the defense played like crap after Myles Garrett wrecked his car.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people pretend like the Baker Mayfield era was like 10 years ago.
It just feels that way.
Does everybody remember Chad Henne? We let Chad Henne scramble for a first down to knock us out of the playoffs. Myles Garrett, for the most part,
that was Baker's fault, Jimmy. It was all Baker's fault.
Exactly. It was all Baker's fault. That's what everybody told us.
It was also Baker's fault that Chris Jones completely destroyed the offensive line on that fourth down play and was all over Baker before he even had a chance to set to throw the ball. We don't remember. Nobody remembers those things.
But for Myles Garrett to stand up there and say those things about Deshaun Watson, all you had to say was, and I was fine with any of them and said, man, I think it sucks for a player to get hurt and anybody in the stadium to cheer that. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Perfectly fair.
But for the 4 or 5 of them that went to the lengths that they did, for a team that has lost, it's not like we're cheering because
But that's the thing, Jimmy. They set the message and the media ran with it. That is PR 101, and I guarantee you that somebody in the Browns PR staff came to them and told them to make a big deal about it so that would be the story, not the fact that this team is 1-6 in a year that everybody was talking about them being a Super Bowl contender. That's what they don't want to talk about. That's why they wanted to make a big deal about what the fans' reaction was, because they don't want to talk about how their play on the field has been fucking garbage. And as long as they're not talking about that, then the team is getting what it wants.
We don't want to talk about how outside of one drive, the offense looked horrible, and Joe Burrow was pretty much, every time he needed to make a big play, there was no resistance to making a big play.
Nope. They got the big pass play when they needed it. Like every week, whenever a team needs a big play, they like this defense just gives up a big play every single week for a touchdown. Like it just always happens. The only week they didn't was against the Giants, and that's because the guy went down at the 4-yard line because they could run out the clock.
Yep.
I want to talk about something that I noticed this week. A number of the Watson apologists, specifically Mary Kay Cabot, who back in August was telling us how this offense was going to be great. It's perfectly tailored to Deshaun Watson. They've got all these weapons. They brought in Jerry Jeudy. They got Amari Cooper. They're going to get Nick Chubb back. They got the Chief. Now all of a sudden this week she's talking about how, well, this system just doesn't, there's a mismatch between him and Stefanski, and this system doesn't really work for Watson, and they just got to get him some more help. They got to get him more help, Jimmy. Remember when we did our preview pod and we said that all these people that were talking about how this team had all this talent, we're going to talk about how they needed more help by the middle of the season?
And
remember when I said that? Remember when I said before the season it was more likely that Stefanski will get fired than this team competes for a playoff spot?
Yeah, and remember 2 years ago when we heard all about the dinner that Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski went and had, and they couldn't wait to play together because his skill set matched so much.
They're best friends.
Best friends with what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. And it still goes back, like the Mary Kay stuff, like that still goes back to camp where Mary Kay saying how great Deshaun looks and how great the team looks. And guys like Darryl Ryder are like, dude, this offense looks like trash.
Yeah, so to further that, I have a hypothesis.
I can't wait.
Mary Kay Cabot is tight with the person that made the Deshaun Watson decision, and I think that person is Andrew Berry. Because Jason Lloyd talked this week about how the idea of going out and getting Deshaun Watson, the initial spark of, the first person to bring that idea up was Andrew Berry. And it's not just that Mary Kay Cabot constantly carries water for Deshaun Watson. We've talked about that for weeks. The last 2-3 weeks, the last couple of weeks when she does her hits on 92.3 or that YouTube show with the other local clowns that are sometimes on 92.3 that don't know shit. She takes pot shots at Baker Mayfield every single chance she gets. And this is what you see from political reporters that work at far right. It happens on the far left news sites, but the right-wing websites are way better at it. They echo the talking points of the people that they're supporting, and that helps them keep that connection so that they get insider information. It just screams to me that she's tight with Andrew Berry, and that is why she is such a water carrier for Watson, because Andrew Berry wants this to work with Watson. Now, he's going to be injured now, so who knows? And with Stefanski giving up play calling, I think Andrew Berry is forcing... I think Stefanski was told he's giving up play calling or he was going to be fired. And I think the reason that the team wants Stefanski to give up play calling is because they don't want to see Stefanski out there calling plays with Winston and having the offense look good. I think that's what it is, because the people in the front office that decided to go after Watson look like fools because of how good Joe Flacco looked last year. And they'll be damned if they're going to let Stefanski get the credit again. Because we've seen this. How many times have we seen a front office and a coach battling it out for who gets the credit? Who made the right call? Who gets the credit? Like, these power struggles happen all the time. Not just here in Cleveland. I mean, they happen all the time here in Cleveland, but they happen all over the league. Look at Dallas. Jerry Jones is always begging for more credit as the front office guy. He always wants to outshine his coach.
Yeah.
And I know Barry's not a look-at-me guy, but he's also perfectly content to let Kevin Stefanski stand up there every week in front of the press and answer questions that he should be answering. Because when Amari Cooper gets traded, the GM should be talking to the press about that. That's not a Kevin Stefanski decision. Yet there's Kevin Stefanski talking about Amari Cooper getting traded and if they're giving up on the season.
Oh, that makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit, all of that. Oh,
yeah.
Because it feels feels very fair. Like
I'm just reading the tea leaves. I obviously have no connection to the team. This is just me as somebody with a journalism degree that has worked in media, that knows how these things work, and understands how human behavior works. And when you have a very poor leader like Jimmy Haslam, a lot of the people like Jimmy Haslam in business have this rivals theory. A lot of like high-end business people are like this. They want all their guys competing with each other. Competition breeds the best in their idea. Like that's their mindset. So when you have these guys all sort of butting heads, at least in an undercurrent way, because it doesn't happen in public, but we don't know what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it like all this screams that to me. Is me just with my experience and knowing how these things have worked in the past, knowing what I've seen from my own personal experience working in media, like all of this just screams somebody wants the credit, but somebody else, like Kevin Stefanski's the one with 2 Coach of the Year awards. Like, what does Andrew Berry have?
We can't really, and that was the thing.
Everybody's trying. It's the rats in the sinking ship. Everybody's trying to save their job now because they know heads are going to roll at the end of this season. Like it just has to.
That was one of the things about the Amari Cooper trade where people were like, "Man, that's a good pick to get back from." I'm like, "Does it matter?"
Well, they could use it. They could use that 3rd round pick on another wide receiver that they'll cut in 4 years because he's not any good.
Well, everybody else can find wide receivers everywhere. Yeah, I hate that feels very legitimate that you basically saying Andrew Berry would rather the season be a complete failure than this next part of the season be successful with Stefanski and Winston.
Yeah, I really believe that.
That's sad. That's sad.
Because what did everybody say last year? We need to bring Flacco back. He works better in this team. We made the playoffs. I mean, he threw a lot of interceptions, but the product on the field was exciting. Yeah. It was worth watching. And to go back to what I said about feeling relief when Watson went down, I think that's why some of those people cheered. And I think that's why, in general, a lot of fans are pretty much like, Like, I'm not happy that Watson got hurt, but I'm not going to be sad about it because I would like to have my Sundays back for this team that I've been rooting for my whole life. You explained it perfectly how people feel about this team. Most Browns fans in Northeast Ohio feel exactly the way you do. And their Sundays where they like to get together with their friends and have parties at their house or go tailgate and go to the stadium or go to the bars, those hours have been robbed from them by this trash organization that has been a dumpster fire for 25 years. And now maybe there's a glimmer of hope that they can recapture a little bit of what they had last year with Flacco, and they can recapture that with Winston, and maybe, just maybe, this team can win 6 or 7 games and be halfway decent the rest of the way. I think that's what people are hoping for.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure we'll do great with Ken Dorsey calling plays because he was so successful calling plays for Josh Allen. So I'm sure he'll be great for Jameis Winston.
It never gets any better, does it?
No.
Well, at least we don't have the hottest team in the NFL coming to Cleveland to play the Browns. Yeah. Oh, wait, we do. The Baltimore Ravens
darn.
come into the lakefront as 8.5-point favorites. This is a 45.5 over-under, minus 395 for the Ravens, plus 310 for the Browns. What are you expecting in this game, Jimmy?
I hope with all the big talk they all had in front of podiums that the defense will step up and play okay, but they won't be able to play well enough. I like the Ravens here. I don't think they'll be quite as hot as they've been, but they only got to score 20 to win the game. So
I think the offense will look better with Winston. I don't know how good the offense will look with Winston. I tentatively want to take Cleveland as a swerve, but I would advise most people to not bet this game. Yep. And the reason is Baltimore is really hot. They also have a very strong tendency to let teams back into games. They did it last week with Tampa, although Tampa had so many receiver injuries, they didn't really have a chance.
Yep.
He's not going to be able to throw as well against Cleveland as he did Tampa. Tampa's whole secondary's basically been out all year.
Yep.
The Browns secondary looked good last week. I think they can kind of shut down the Baltimore receivers because I don't think Baltimore's receivers are that great. This just screams Derrick Henry running for like a $180, and like if the Ravens run for 260 yards in this game, would anybody be surprised?
No.
So if you have to bet this game, I guess go with Baltimore. That seems to be the smart money play, but a backdoor cover is very, very possible because this could be. So at what 8.5? That's 16.5. I mean, Baltimore could easily be up 16 and Cleveland score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion in like the last, with like 3.5 minutes left on the clock, and then they try an onside kick and Baltimore just runs the clock out. So just be careful of that backdoor cover out there. Maybe tease this down to under a touchdown. I definitely think Baltimore wins by a touchdown. I just don't know if they can get to 8.5.
No, that's good advice there.
Well, let's talk about the Thursday night game. The Rams beat the Vikings. The Rams all of a sudden got healthy. I don't know. They must have had some sensu beans out there in LA for them because all of a sudden Puka Nacua was back.
Well, it's been 4 long weeks of attrition for the Rams, and they got their guys back, and they looked like the team we thought they'd be.
Yeah, really bad missed face mask. I don't know if they're going to drive down the field. I mean, I guess when you have Justin Jefferson, anything's possible, but I wanted to make note of something I talked about last week. The Vikings, they played the Detroit Lions the week before, and then they lost the game after, which has been a trend all year. Teams that play Detroit lose their game the week after. Yep. Just something we need to definitely keep in mind. We've seen this with Baltimore and Pittsburgh before. Really tough physical teams. Now, that was on defense that they would wear teams down, beat them up offensively. This Detroit team just grinds you to dust with that big offensive line and running the football. I think they just soften defenses up because that Minnesota defense looked awesome for weeks, and then all of a sudden they play Detroit. They look pretty bad, and then the Rams just pretty much used them. All right, let's blow through the slate. No buys this week.
No,
randomly no buys in week 8. The aforementioned Detroit Lions are 11.5-point home favorites over the previously mentioned Mason Rudolph and Tennessee Titans. Over-under sits at 45, minus 650 for Detroit, plus 470 for Tennessee. Any chance Tennessee keeps this close?
No.
Yeah, they look like a bad team.
Yeah. I honestly believed they would keep fighting hard enough to keep last week's close, and they couldn't do that. So I'm definitely all out on Tennessee now.
Yeah, and we'll have more on the DeAndre Hopkins trade when we get to the Kansas City game, but that's sort of them saying we don't think we're good and we're not going to worry about it.
Yep.
Up next, the Green Bay Packers traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jags. Packers 4-point favorites. 49.5 is the over-under, minus 198 for Green Bay, plus 164. I don't understand why this is a 4-point spread. I think Green Bay's at least a touchdown better than Jacksonville. What say you?
I agree. But I think it's because of the volatileness of the Packers' last few games. Like, since Jordan Love has came back, they've been very up and down in game.
Oh, that's because he's pretty erratic with his turnovers.
Yeah, so I think the 4-5 is a good spot, but I see the Packers winning by a touchdown as well. So I like Green Bay.
Plus,
here.
They got Robert Saleh consulting on the defense. We saw the Jets' defense get worse the 2 weeks that he's been out. So we've seen Green Bay's defense looked a lot better last week, I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The Houston Texans are home facing the Indianapolis Colts. They're 5-point favorites. Over-under sits at 45, minus 225 for the Texans, plus 185 for the Colts. I feel like Houston should win this game pretty easily, and I will definitely betting the under on completions and completion percentage for Anthony Richardson.
That's fair. Oh, the Texans. Oh, Houston. Oh.
Yeah, they really they should have had that
Bobby
one last week.
Bobby Slowick, don't play for field goals, man. You got a great quarterback and a good offense. Come on, don't play for field goals. Yeah, no, I don't think this is a close game. I don't think it's a close game the Colts could lose. I think either the Colts win close or the Texans blow them out. And I think it's more likely the Texans blow them out. So I'm on the Texans.
I don't think the Colts can win this game.
Whoa.
I just don't think they're a good team. I think everybody's figured out Anthony Richardson. He can't throw, and they're not going to let him run wild like they did last year.
What are you talking about? Anthony Richardson's great, man. Come on.
I know. The Cincinnati Bengals are trying to claw their way back into the AFC playoff hunt. They are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are trying to see if they've actually righted anything after playing the Browns and Giants. Bengals, 2.5-point home favorites. 47.5 is the over-under. Minus 142 for the Bengals, plus 120 for the Eagles. This line was 3. It's now 2.5. What do you think happens?
I don't know. I don't get it. The Eagles did not look great. Well, okay, Saquon looked great last week, but the rest of the team didn't look that great. And you didn't look that great against the Browns, and now you're playing a high-powered offense whose defense at least has some confidence after last week. So I'm going to take the Bengals here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals too. When it was 3, I was kind of leaning Philadelphia because this feels like a field goal game.
Yeah,
but with the 2.5, I'll take Cincinnati. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game because neither one of these defenses are all that great.
Yep.
We just talked about the Jets firing Robert Saleh and promptly losing 2 games in a row. They're traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. 7-point favorites are the Jets on the road. 41 is the over-under, minus 325 on their money line, plus 260 for the Patriots. It looks like the Patriots have maybe found a little something in Drake May. He's not terrible. He's not a world beater, but he's not bad.
He looks good in the preseason as well. I like the Patriots here.
I agree. I think this Jets team's a mess, and I could watch, like, whenever I see Nick Wright talk about the Jets, where he's like, oh my God, why are the Jets bad? It's like, because they're the Jets and they're a bad football team. Like, that's what goes through my head all season. It's like, they're not a good football team. Like, if the New York Jets were in any other market in this country, nobody would be talking about them. If the Jets were the Raiders, they'd be not talked about. Or if they were Arizona, not talked about. Like, the only reason they're talked about is because they're in New York and they have Aaron Rodgers, who seems I was thinking about this. Aaron Rodgers does his weekly hit on Pat McAfee. Remember how it was with the Steelers when Roethlisberger was doing his weekly radio hits and just burying his teammates, and it always looked like his teammates wanted nothing to do with him on Sunday?
Yep.
I think we're seeing that replay out here with the New York Jets, and I'm really glad I took their under.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad I picked them to make the playoffs. Really glad.
Yeah, well, we can't win them all. I thought Jacksonville was going to win the AFC South, so there's that. We next get to see the Atlanta Falcons travel to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Atlanta, 2.5-point favorites here. 46 is the over-under, minus 142 for Atlanta, plus 120 for Tampa Bay. What a bummer for Tampa Bay, man. Kind of a iffy holding call, calls back a touchdown, and then the next play, Mike Evans gets hurt, and then later in that game, Chris Godwin gets hurt with all the injuries they've had in the secondary. I don't know how they're going to be able to compete with Atlanta this week. What do you think?
Not an iffy. That was bullshit. That call was bullshit. No, feels so bad for Tampa. That's exactly why the league needs to find a better punishment for hip drop tackles, because that was textbook hip drop tackle that probably ends Chris Godwin's career, at least for a year and a half at least.
Yeah, there was a fine. Roquan Smith got fined, but there was no flag on that play. And who else got hurt? 2 weeks ago, somebody got hurt and said that's a hip drop tackle, and it wasn't called. I forget who it was.
Yeah. So I don't know what. For me, this is a stay away, because with the way Atlanta looked last week, it wouldn't surprise me if Tampa beat them with no wide receivers. But if Tampa came out and scored 0 points and lost by 50, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Atlanta, but this is a full stay away for me, because I don't know what the hell happened to Atlanta last week.
Okay. I like Atlanta in this game, which is probably why people should stay away, because I've had no feel for them all year. Drake London probably going to score a touchdown, though. Him and Cousins seem to have found their connection.
Yeah.
Our next game sees the Miami Dolphins hosting the Arizona Cardinals. God, do I hate both of these teams right now. The spread is 4. Is Tua coming back?
Yes.
Okay, so that is why the
Yes.
Dolphins are favored by 4. The over-under is 46, minus 198 for the Dolphins, plus 164 for Arizona. With that knowledge, I would think Miami's going to win this game. They're going to give some easy throws for Tua, and he should be able to make them. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm right back on the Tua train, man. If Tua's healthy, I love the Dolphins. I
They're a
don't
great
know.
regular season team against bad teams, and Arizona's a bad team.
Yeah.
Our next game sees the Buffalo Bills traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Bills are 3-point favorites here. Over-under sits at 46.5. Seattle, very up and down, just
Yeah.
like Buffalo. So I feel like everything's available in this game. Buffalo could win by 10, Seattle could win by 10, or it could be a nail-biter. It just depends which teams show up.
I need Seattle to even out and be good or bad for 2 weeks in a row. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on there. I think this can actually be one of the best football games of the week. I'm going to take Buffalo because Josh Allen feels like he's still at the top of his roller coaster right now, and he hasn't came back down. So I'm going to take the Bills, but I think this could be a really good football game.
I'm hedging to Seattle because I don't really know what to do. So when in doubt, take the points. Plus, this feels like a field goal game.
Yeah,
like how it'll eventually play out, where everybody will Buffalo will win a quarter and then Seattle will win the next quarter.
Yeah.
So I have the over for both of these teams, and I'm feeling good about it. I have Buffalo to win the AFC East, which I like, and I have Seattle to make the playoffs. So I kind of can't lose in this game.
It kind of feels like actually even for it feels like the NFC West is up for grabs.
Oh yeah, with how San Francisco's been playing and all their injuries, if Seattle wins this game, they'll be really in the driver's seat.
Yeah, so lot for both of these teams to play for. I think this could really be the sneaky steal game of the week. I think that's going to be a marquee game, really good game.
Yeah, plus Buffalo a full 2 games up on everybody in the AFC East.
And we could also call this one, friend of the pod. We could also call this the Sully Bowl with Gino versus Josh. So
shout out to Sully. The Los Angeles Chargers, fresh off of gagging away a game against the Arizona Cardinals, are now home taking on the New Orleans Saints. I know, I've got the Chargers over and to make the playoffs, and that was a game I really would have liked them to win.
Yeah.
But no, we can't score a touchdown against the Cardinals' shitty defense. They're 7-point favorites. 41's the over-under, minus 310 for the Chargers, plus 250 for the Saints. I'm taking the Saints because this Chargers team, they're good, but they can't. I don't see how they're beating anybody by more than 7.
They got to bounce back. They got to be able to beat this Saints team by 9 points. They have to.
Maybe Taysom Hill comes back so he can get 2 or 3 cheap touchdowns and steal from
don't do that.
Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara fantasy owners.
That's just mean. Don't do that. No, I'm just gonna feel like last week was a weird thing that happened, and I'm gonna just Chargers. Give me the Chargers.
Okay, I hope you're right.
Me too.
I'm not betting this game because the Saints are involved, and I'm not allowed to bet games that the Saints are involved in.
Yeah, it's good of you to police yourself like that. It's a good idea.
The Kansas City Chiefs are traveling to Vegas to take on the Raiders. They are 9.5-point favorites. Over-under sits at 41.5, minus 425 for the Chiefs, plus 330 for the Raiders. The Chiefs get DeAndre Hopkins for like a 5th-round pick, which is just classic Chiefs making a move to make their team better. The Raiders really tried to stick the needle in Kansas City after they beat him last year on Christmas when I think Mahomes was dealing with the flu or something. And I just feel like Kansas City's going to come out and just want to wallop this team. So I like the Chiefs here.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to it. I think it's the Chiefs all day.
And I don't even think it's necessarily because their offense is going to go off. This could very easily be a 17-3 game. Because that Chiefs defense looks like the best in the league.
Yeah, I don't think the Raiders can score any points on this defense. Like, they could win this game 12-0 with 4 field goals.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
Like, we talked about it. Like, Andy Reid is fully trusting his defense right now. He's not taking a lot of chances. Which, maybe that changes a little bit if Hopkins looks good. The offense looked a little bit more firepower last week. Like, they looked a little bit more high gear, but
And
Yeah, I
that
mean,
score looks a lot different if he hits Worthy, if Mahomes doesn't miss Worthy on that deep ball.
yep, and it was there. Like, it was there. He
I
just
can't
missed
believe
it.
he
So.
overthrew him. I didn't think that was
Weird.
possible with Worthy. The dude's so fast.
Yeah, I think he probably thought that too. So he got to learn a little bit, and he's usually pretty good about fixing his mistakes. I don't think he'll miss it again, but he was probably like, "Damn, I can't believe I overthrew that dude."
Yeah,
Like,
just put a little more air in that ball and let him run under it.
yep.
But we see that happen with guys sometimes. The Denver Broncos are hosting the Carolina Panthers, who will now be starting Bryce Young, which makes this line make a lot more sense. 11. It was like 9.5, and it's now all the way up to 11. Over-under's 41, minus 575 for the Broncos, plus 425 for the Panthers. How high would this line have to go for you to take Carolina?
I don't even want to talk about this game.
All right, fair enough. I'm taking Denver to win in a blowout.
Come on, you really believe Denver's going to blow somebody out?
I think their defense is good enough that I don't think Carolina is going to score. Bryce Young is terrible. He's not an NFL quarterback. They're going to do the same in like 5 weeks whenever DTR is healthy again for the Browns. We're going to play the same game here in Cleveland that Carolina's playing with Bryce Young. Like, well, we got to play him and see what we have in him. It's like, no, you know what you have in him. He sucks. He's not a starting quarterback. Like, what are we doing?
All right. Okay, sure. Okay. Denver by 11.5. Oh, that's dirty.
No, it's just 11. It's just 11 right now.
It's going to get to 11.
I mean, it'll probably be 13 by the time kickoff hits. I mean, this is a 4 o'clock game, so. The Chicago Bears are traveling to Washington to take on the Armada. They're 3-point favorites because Marcus Mariota is starting this game. I don't care what anybody says. Daniels isn't playing. The over-under sits at 43, minus 148 for the Bears, plus 124 for the Commanders. It looks like Chicago might have gotten their stuff together, and it seems with Mariota in there, can Washington do anything against this Bears defense?
Yeah, I thought Mariota looked absolutely great when he came in last week. I think he can do – I don't think he's as explosive as Jaden Daniels is, but I think Mariota can run this offense and do what they're doing. And I'm taking Washington here. I'm gonna just keep sailing with the Armada, man.
I like how you said that, sailing with the Armada. I like Chicago. I think they're gonna shut down Washington. I don't think Mariota's gonna look as good, but we'll see. Maybe he does. This offense is kind of tailored to him. It's more college-oriented spread, so maybe it'll work. 2 teams in the NFC really struggling. The San Francisco 49ers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas coming off the bye are 4-point underdogs. 47's the over-under, plus 164 for the Cowboys, minus 198 for the Niners. Is there any reason to think that San Francisco's dominance over Dallas is going to end tomorrow night?
I think if San Francisco has any of their weapons healthy, this is an easy touchdown win. But they're struggling. Like, Brock Purdy is struggling without the rest of the Avengers.
No Micah Parsons in this game for Dallas, by the way. Or likely helps. No Micah.
That helps. Yeah, I'm gonna take the 49ers here, but I am very worried about San Francisco.
Yeah, that defense also not as good as we thought.
No.
They've suffered some injuries on that side of the ball too that people don't talk about as much.
Yep.
I'll take the Niners. This game's scary. I take the Niners just because the Niners seem to have Dallas's number. They blow them out all the time when both sides are healthy. So, 4 points doesn't seem that onerous with both sides kind of beat up. But the loser of this game is in trouble.
Yeah.
Our final game of the week, just the fucking Pittsburgh Steelers, man. They're home taking on the Giants, 6-point favorites, 36.5 is the over-under, minus 238 for Pittsburgh, plus 195 for the Giants. I think we're going to see Drew Lock, Jimmy, because Daniel Jones's contract next year is guaranteed for injury, and I think they want to cut him after this season and not have him on the team. So I don't think we're going to see him again. And Drew Lock versus that Pittsburgh defense just sounds like, regardless of whether Russell Wilson can be as good as he was last week, this just sounds like a 10-point win for Pittsburgh at least.
Yeah, it sounds like a 10-0 win for Pittsburgh. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Although Wilson does seem, he throws the type of deep ball that Pickens is really good at catching in traffic, so that could definitely be something.
and he's also, and I think Freiermuth. I think him with Freiermuth is really good because he knows Freiermuth knows the offense well enough to be where he's supposed to be, and he can just throw the ball to that spot. Like it. I was really hoping the first half Russell Wilson is who they got, not the second half Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
I was really happy in that first half, and it was like, oh, Russell Wilson looks like Deshaun Watson. This is great.
Baltimore said, you know what? No broken legs. You're right. We don't know how to pass the ball, but we'll just become the greatest running offense ever. Pittsburgh was like, we're going to find 2 winnable quarterbacks. Cincinnati's like, we're so good, we don't have to win for the first month, and we'll still make the playoffs. And now here we are with Jameis Winston telling me that Deshaun Watson is, playing for his life. Oh, my God.
He's putting his life on the line, Jimmy. He's putting his life on the line.
Oh, God.
Just like all those first responders, firefighters, and police officers, and our fellow citizens that are service members in the military out there in the Middle East and in various parts of the world. He's putting his life on the line for the fans of Cleveland, Jimmy. Makes me want to boo Jameis Winston, which is kind of weird because I really don't have an opinion about Jameis Winston.
but just that nonsense makes me want to boo. Hey, you know what though? It's going to be really fun cheering basically an expansion team in their new dome in a couple of years. Like that's going to be fun.
Let's save the dome talk for the bye week. Let's just save the dome talk for the bye week.
Pittsburgh found 2 quarterbacks. They found 2.
I know.
2 quarterbacks.
The Browns could have gotten either one of them, but they didn't want to upstage the sexual predator they traded for 3 years ago and gave it $230 million.
It cost them like nothing.
And they still owe him like $172 million on the cap over the next 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
That's just fabulous. Oh yeah. One more thing. I didn't mention it when we talked about Andrew Berry, but can we just stop with these guys are geniuses with the cap? Can we just stop with that, considering they still owe Deshaun Watson $172 million over the next 3 years on the cap?
Well,
and it's going to hamstring this team horribly, and they're just going to have the next 3 years. They're basically going to have $60 million hole just sitting on their cap.
I mean, to what you said earlier, at this point, Mary Kay Cabot's the only one saying he's a genius with the cap.
No, man. I've been scrolling the YouTube comments. There's plenty of people that seem to agree with that as well.
Oh, they're crazy too.
Yeah. Any parlays you like this week? It's tough to find a good parlay because there's some games with some big spreads.
Yeah, I think that's what, because it still doesn't change the fact that this year it's still been teams as 7+ point underdogs are still winning football games outright.
Yeah.
So the big spreads actually scare me. This year, the big spreads have been tough. I think when I take my emotions out of it, I'll probably focus a lot of time on the Atlanta game because Tampa Bay should have nothing left, and then the Carolina game with Bryce Young, Carolina should have nothing left, even with that being a big spread. So that's probably 2 spots, and then I do like Buffalo. So those are probably the 3 games that I'll be focusing a lot on my parlays.
Yeah, I think the Buffalo-Seattle game and the Cincinnati-Philadelphia game, whichever way you like that, I think you can take the money line there and put that in a parlay. I just built a parlay with the Texans money line, the Packers money line, the Patriots with 7 points, and the Dolphins money line, and that'll net you plus 530. So that seems pretty good.
Yeah. No, I like that was who was it? Texans, Packers,
and Dolphins on the money line, and then Patriots with the 7 points. And I would probably bump that up to 7.5 just in case they do lose by a touchdown.
Nice. That sounds good.
So you're at least getting pretty good odds there. And if you throw Buffalo or Seattle, however you go on that, or Cincinnati and Philly, if you want to do a 6-pick parlay, I think that'll get you some good odds and get you a good return. Because you can't, don't even bother putting the Detroit money line or, the Kansas City money line or Denver money line. That's just going to kill your odds.
Yeah, it's just going to kill your odds. Yeah, I think, you've got to look at teams offenses are getting better, but defenses aren't going to get better. Defenses are either good or bad unless they're playing like Cleveland or Carolina or Daniel Jones
Yeah.
or rookie quarterbacks.
Well, there's no more Daniel Jones, I don't think. But
Well,
you do
right,
get
but I
Drew
mean,
Lock.
you know what I mean? Like unless you've played a really inexperienced quarterback or Daniel Jones or the Cleveland Browns,
Yeah.
if your defense has been bad the rest of the time but looked good there, you got to throw that game out and just know those are bad defenses.
Yeah. Unless you want to do something like bump Detroit up to plus 13.5, bump Denver up to plus 13 or minus 13.5. Sorry for both of those, and like Kansas City, maybe keep them at 9.5 because 10 seems reasonable. Like, just to give yourself a better chance of getting some good odds because Denver, like the Denver Carolina game, feels like it could be a blowout. As the Detroit Tennessee game feels. Those are the only two games that I really feel like could be like big blowouts. And really, I would put Kansas City in there, but we'll see what happens with DeAndre Hopkins in that offense before I want to like put them on the, okay, that offense is back and can do things. Because right now they're really leaning on the running game and the defense.
Yep.
Oh, boy. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow with the Browns. And
well,
maybe they'll at least be entertaining. Maybe.
Now, I mean, I guess for me, the thing that will make it the hardest for Mary Kay Cabot and all local Cleveland sports journalists will be if the team comes out and it looks like everybody's just playing harder and running faster.
Yeah, or if they can actually line up and not get pre-snap penalties 5 times.
Then they'll have to still try to tell me how they all wanted to play with Deshaun Watson. Like that's
people do like him. They really do. They think he's.
They really do.
They like what he brings to the table. They like his energy. Apparently, he's a great locker room guy. So
yeah.
He seems like a leader everywhere he goes. That's what people have said about him the last like 5 years.
Yeah. Hey, he was great. He was great throwing for 5,000 yards for a losing team. So
yeah, with 30 touchdowns and 30 picks. At least it'd be entertaining. Maybe I should do the Flacco parlay with Jameis Winston. Because if Ken Dorsey's calling plays, they're going to throw a ton.
Yeah, you could probably roll that over and make your money back there, bud.
There we go. All right, brother. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope you feel better.
Me too. No place I'd rather be. Go Browns.
Thank you for listening. Jimmy and I do this every Saturday. And like I said, we'll get more into the stadium stuff after next week when the Browns are on the bye, and we'll do a full breakdown of where the Browns are. Until then, for Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.